I don't know which bridge in my life broke first. The suspension bridge of backups I'd quietly built across every risk, or the fragile bridge connecting me to the place I once called home, Meridian Technologies. That Monday morning, when Mark Reynolds said, "Clear your desk by the end of the day," I didn't feel myself falling. I just heard a tiny sound somewhere in my chest, a click, like a rivet slipping from a cable. I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't hold back. I gathered the ceramic mug my son had made in 10th grade, the cactus that had survived 18 years of fluorescent lighting, the family photo in Hocking Hills, with the sunlight filtering through the leaves like golden veins. People glanced at it, then looked down at the screen, like watching a dark cloud drift past a window. Chloe, who had called me at 1 a.m. to rescue a presentation file, stammered, "It's ridiculous," and I said, "It's okay," even though I knew it wasn't. I left the 12-story glass building, returning my access card, which had been renewed 17 times. Some things were signed for, others were left quietly. Age, the habit of waking up at 5:40 to check my night logs, the simple belief that if I did it right, they would do it right. I sat in my car, my hands touching the steering wheel, cold as server room metal. I thought of Laura, the woman who used to pull me out of cloud transitions with a cup of tea. I thought of Mia, my daughter in graduate school, still calling Daddy when her laptop froze. I thought of Noah, the young employee with the eyes to listen to data, and I knew this story would be more than just a closing. Curiosity always starts with the tiniest of touches. A few months ago, Mark Reynolds, the MBA type who used to say, "Optimize the future," like a mantra, brought in a guy named Tyler Grant. Tyler had a nice smile, a firm handshake, his LinkedIn showing his Stanford degree, his transformation project listed. I sat at the back of the room, listening to them talk about leanness, efficiency, non-core outsourcing. I said softly, "There's a very old array, layer upon layer. Untangling it is like touching the central nervous system." Tyler smiled. "Uncle Ethan, we're used to untangling." When he called me uncle, I understood. People don't need history. They need a place to plant a flag. Then my access rights were tweaked a bit. At Meridian, I'd built an internal audit system when the company was in a scandal. Legal requirements required seeing every hand that went into the safe. I looked, logged, and my own keys started to be taken away. A small portion of the master key. I didn't react. I took notes. Curious, he pulled up a chair next to me like an old acquaintance. One night, running a background scan as usual, I saw a strange name in the payment matrix, Apex Solutions Group. It was like a discolored pixel in an X-ray. The address was a UPS store. The bill bulged 12% to 22%. Regularly. I opened the payment schedule like a pocket watch. The gears worked silently, only occasionally dropping a little metal dust. I saved it. Didn't email it. Out of curiosity, I told them to wait. I waited. Laura placed the blue ceramic bowl on the table, the scent of cinnamon wafting from freshly baked apple pie. My kitchen was always warmer than the server room, even though it was the same temperature. "Is there anything you're hiding from me?" she asked without asking. I smiled, told a few small stories. I didn't want to bring office fumes home. But when I was fired, I couldn't hide it. I told everything, like releasing a valve on a pipe that had been shaking for years. Laura listened silently. No judgment. "No, Why didn't you fight back? Question. She just put her hand on mine. I'm a good person in my own way. If something goes wrong, it will come out. The words stuck with me like a pebble in the palm of my hand. I opened the locked drawer under my desk at home. The USB drive was there, the one that had been authorized for off-site audit purposes when legal signed papers back in the day. I remembered the rainy afternoon I stood in front of the conference room, explaining why I needed to have a copy outside the company infrastructure for future investigations. They nod because they're tired, because they trust me, or because they want to go to lunch. Then they forget. I remember, on the USB, history doesn't complain. It just sits there, layered. Emails, minutes, approvals. I trace the numbers like a circuit board. CFO Richard Hale. The approval authority extended 16 months ago. I checked the corporate registry. Apex's owner is Nathan Hale, my brother-in-law. I flip through the ledger. Payments accumulated to $1.62 million in 16 months. My skin crawls, not with fear, but with anger. The feigned innocence of corruption. Not creating fake services, just inflating real ones. Cautious, persistent, insensitive. I don't call the press. I write an email to the board, then delete it. I know if I send it now, it will be read with the eyes of the just hurt. I want this voice not only to be right, but to resonate in the right room. Tuesday night, Noah texted, "Ethan, they said you made up the financial story. Tyler is in an emergency meeting. I'm worried." I replied, "Don't take sides. Just do your job. And watch." The boys' eyes were still uncertain. I didn't want them to be dragged into punishing good people as witnesses. But I also knew young eyes need to see what happens when good people stand up. Wednesday morning, I sat in my car in front of the headquarters, my laptop open in the passenger seat, using the internal-looking but not in a folder email account, the one I'd created for testing forgeries. At 9:07, I emailed Mark Reynolds, "Payment irregularities, urgent." No mention of my brother-in-law. No blame. Just enough information to scare someone involved. At 9:38, Mark called. I didn't listen. At 10:22, HR threatened a breach of confidentiality in the severance agreement, the one I hadn't signed. I smiled sadly. When people fear the light, they cover it with a blanket of law. At noon, I went to the bank, opened the safe. Another USB stick, a copy of a copy. I always believed in the principle of no single point of failure. Suspension bridges require multiple cables. At home, I compared. Everything fit together like a stitch. Richard's authorization stamp, the payment date, the owner of Apex, and a name looming, Lakeside Business Solutions. They'd tried this 3.5 years earlier. The owner was Evelyn Hale, Richard's wife. Maybe the money was tight then, or the person who saw it had left the company. In the afternoon, the landline rang. "Ethan, this is Richard Hale." His voice was calm, like someone lulling a baby to sleep. "Can we talk like men?" I laughed. "Men don't need HR to call to scare them." He paused. "It's a misunderstanding. Let's meet, explain, negotiate." I said bluntly, "Apex is your brother-in-law." A gasp. "You're making a big mistake. We can make a generous offer." I hung up. Not because I was a saint, because I saw clearly. Mia and people like her would live in a worse world if the father accepted the envelope. That night, Laura cooked pumpkin soup. She said, You can go as far as you want. I'll stand here." There was no fire of revenge in her eyes. She only hoped that her lover would sleep peacefully and not dream of hearing the cable fall. I held her hand. I didn't fight alone. I called Leonard Brooks, a board member who had worked with me on the audit years before. He was part-time, gentle, and thorough. "Ethan, I hear you left Meridian. Involuntary?" "No, but there's something worth hearing." We met in a park 4 miles from headquarters. I handed him the envelope, a hard copy of the executive summary and a USB drive. Leonard didn't open it yet. He looked at me for a long time, like a carpenter looking at a piece of wood before setting the saw. "There's an emergency financial meeting on Thursday morning. How convenient." He smiled. "I'll read it." At this age, the greatest favor isn't someone who believes in you unconditionally, but someone who reads it. At night, I logged into the mail server one last time. Permissions should have been revoked, but Tyler was in a hurry. I scheduled an email for the entire board of directors at 8:10 a.m. Before approving quarterly bonuses, please read the attached file. In the morning, I sat on the porch, my hands warm from coffee, my chest cold from waiting. 8:10, the email exploded. 8:55, the finance committee had an emergency meeting. 9:21, Noah texted, "Police are here. Richard, Mark is separated from his room. Tyler is pale. What are you doing?" I looked at the maple trees in the front yard. The leaves were turning yellow. Sometimes the change of seasons requires a breeze. 9:48, the general counsel called. I answered. She spoke with professional etiquette. "The board of directors appreciates cooperation, invites you to the company, needs to discuss directly." I calmly said, "Everything is in the report. If anyone touches my family, a copy will go to the SEC, the IRS, and 3 newsrooms." The line paused for a beat, then changed to a more serious tone. "We understand." At noon, I drove 22 miles out of town, ate at an old restaurant. The news leaked. Meridian investigating financial irregularities. No names. I ate slowly. When I got back, Leonard called. "There's blood." Richard confessed, hoping for a settlement, blaming Mark. Mark denied. Tyler said he was just an advisor. The board suspended all 3. "We want to discuss the details with you, your new role." I leaned back in my chair. I had thought about this possibility. They wanted me back to guard the gate of the bridge they were building, so someone else could saw off the rust. That night, I told Laura everything, from the pixelated color to the legal call. I couldn't hide the slight tremor in my left hand as I put the phone down. She listened, tilting her head as if listening to the rain on the roof. "So what do you want?" she asked. The question ran through me like an electric current seeking ground. I wanted justice, but not in big letters. I wanted order, for kids like Noah to work where diligence is used to build, not to hide. I wrote down the conditions. A CISO position reporting directly to the board, independent cross-department audit rights, veto power over any fintech decision if security standards weren't met. They would say unusual. I had already said. Embezzling $485 million in 3 years is also unusual. Monday morning, I put on my old suit and walked into the building. The security guard greeted me with a different look. In the elevator to the executive floor, a place I had never been before, I looked at the floor number. I remembered the times I slept in the server room when the power went out. I remembered little Mia asking, Why does the server keep calling me? I remembered Laura. The door opened. The table was long. 10 people. Leonard frowned gently. Mr. Parker, the acting CEO said, the financial forensics estimated the loss to be close to $4.96 million. The board of directors wants to hire you as the director of information security, reporting directly to the board of directors. I placed the stack of papers in front of them. Conditions. They read. Someone frowned. Unusual, the acting CEO said, like letting a family member open a company in the backyard. I replied, my voice calm. At 11:41, I need to answer a few places. I stood up. I didn't ask for more than the honor of the system. At 11:41, Leonard called. Agreed. All. I sat down on the bench in the lobby. Far away, the autumn sky knows how to breathe. I don't cry inside. Just a new peace. Like the feeling of checking off-site backups. If something bad happens, there's still a way back. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a glass-paned room looking at the Columbus skyline. I check the lock rotation schedule, the vendor risk assessment, the list of contractors who must sign the security addendum. Noah knocks on the door. Are you free, boss? He doesn't call me Ethan anymore. He calls me boss without flattery. I let him explain. His eyes are still bright, but bright because of work, not because of drama. I say, go. Make sure to keep a thick log. He laughs. Who else did you learn from? Richard pleads guilty. We'll go to jail. Mark hires a lawyer, tries to push his roll down. Tyler flies to Chile, then gets extradited. Most of the money is recovered. There's a loss, but enough to keep the company from going under. In my new position, I'm not the one pounding the hammer. I became a storyteller with data. Each number was a character. Each access was a door. Each patch was a stitch. One afternoon, I stood in the glass hallway overlooking the lobby. I saw Chloe hurrying with her laptop. I remembered the time she cried because she lost a file. I said, everything has a shadow. Then I pulled out a copy from the shadow. Today, I wrote a policy so that every other Chloe would stop crying. The policy was dry, so I wrapped it in real-life stories. I called it the Internal Security Story Series. Laura read it, smiling. And then I became a writer. At night, we passed a small bridge near our house. The railing had a plaque commemorating the person who fell off a bike last winter. Laura touched it lightly. Every bridge needs someone to look after it. I took her hand. The cold metal slowly healed under that warm hand. One day, the general counsel called. Ethan, there's a reporter who wants you to comment. We can... I interrupted. I don't want to be a journalistic hero. Let the law tell the story. She paused and said, Thank you. Not because I was defending the company, because I was defending the anonymous. People who just wanted to make it through the day, take their kids to school, come home for dinner, and not have their names in the newspaper. I wrote a little note to my office. If one day you're caught between fast and right, remember, fast wins 3 days, right wins the whole year. At night, Mia called. Dad, I finished my presentation today. I was shaking, but I told the story first and then told the numbers. They listened. I laughed to myself, listening to my daughter's voice across the long road, like a small cable connecting one bridge to another. At one meeting, the board of directors asked, Why spend all this money on security? This money is used to hire more sales teams. I didn't throw a threatening chart at them. I told the story of the first-time marketing mother who stayed up all night, clicked the wrong link, and opened the door for internal malware. I told the story of the young engineer who signed an approval for the first time, not distinguishing between fake domains. I said, "We're not buying a brick wall. We're buying time for that person to learn how to get up after a mistake without dragging the company down." The room was silent. Leonard said, "I think we have the answer." The budget passed. No debate. At night, I came home late. Laura was still waiting. The stew was still warm. "Did you save anyone today?" she asked. "You saved a decision," I replied. She winked. "The same person." 3 months later, Noah knocked on the door, hesitantly. "Boss, I got a call from somewhere else. Good position. I'm undecided." I thought of myself 18 years ago, determined to stay, believing loyalty was the key. I said, "Loyalty is precious. Blind loyalty is a shackle. Wherever you learn a lot, live well, sleep well, there is home. If here, good. If elsewhere, I'm still here. The bridge is still built." He looked at me, his eyes moist. "I'm staying. Because now, here, I learned to sleep well." We laughed. I gave him a difficult project, not to keep, but to give. One night, I received an anonymous email. "You think you saved the company? You're just helping them cover up another face." I read it for a long time. The sender could be someone hurt by a decision I didn't know. Justice doesn't make people happy. I printed it out, put it in a notebook, and wrote below, "Security is not a stick, it's a crutch. Don't let it become a shackle." I told the team, "Lock a door, open a window, reduce authority, increase assistance, write regulations with easy-to-understand diagrams for non-professionals. If honest people find themselves suspected, we've done wrong." The day the court sentenced Richard, I didn't show up. I took Laura for a walk in the park. There was a patch of sunlight on the bench. I remember the first day I cleaned the table, I also saw a cloud. Today's cloud was brighter. Not because bad guys were punished, because I understood. Every bridge has a clatter, and my job is to tighten the rivets. I texted Noah. "Going to lunch?" He sent an icon of a bowl of posh ho. Columbus also has pho pho, not as good as the Vietnamese area, but enough to comfort me. The shop is small, the sign hanging crooked because of a loose screw. I took the extra screw, a strange habit of servers, and tightened it lightly. The owner smiled. "Thank you." Noah joked. "The boss also does security for the sign." I said, "Every bridge needs a caretaker." At night, I turned on my computer and wrote a document that few people would read to the end. Security Culture Manual for New Employees. On the first page, I wrote, "We control not because we are suspicious of each other, but because we trust each other enough to not force anyone into a situation where they have to choose quickly instead of correctly." I inserted a story, an email that almost fooled me, a time I almost signed the wrong thing because I was having a fever, a time Laura told me to put the computer down and go to bed because my eyes were red. I kept my voice light, avoided harsh words. I thought about the children growing up in this world. Who knows which page Mia will read? I wanted her to see her father choose to fix instead of burn. In the winter, snow fell early. The building's heating system sometimes malfunctioned. I went down to the computer room to sit with Walter, listening to the fans spin like windmills. The faint smell of ozone only the server people could smell. I sent emails to remote workers during storms. Some people still came, because the house was noisy, because they liked the office feel. I opened the break room, boiled water, and put out a few packets of cocoa. Little things. But it is the little things that make a soft security, the one that keeps people from taking shortcuts. In the evening, Laura took a towel to dry my hair, grumbling, "You let the snow stick to your hair like a Christmas tree again." I took her hand and put it on my cheek. The cold melted quickly. I wrote a letter addressed to Mark Reynolds. I did not send it. I wrote, "Perhaps you think modernity is a sharp knife, but the knife does not know what it cuts. The handle knows. You let someone else hold the knife. I wish you had asked me one more question then. I would have shown you where the nerve circuits are. It is all done. I do not resent you. I hope somewhere you learn how to hold a knife again." I folded the letter and put it in the drawer. There are truths that should only be told in the drawer. An intern named Emma entered the room, her eyes shining like stars. "Ethan, I want to learn how to write a script to test authorization." I smiled. "Sit down." I explained the principle of minimum, journaling, the habit of thinking about tomorrow when writing today. I told the story of when I was young. I wrote an emergency shortcut and forgot to delete it. It slept for 11 years and almost ruined a big deal. Emma said, "Then I have to learn how to clean up after eating." I nodded. Time was up, she thanked me. I watched her run away, suddenly choking up. We do all this because of those running legs. The university invited me to speak. In front of a lecture hall full of 22, 23-year-olds, I said, "Don't get drunk on buzzwords. Get drunk on the moment of discovering a loophole before it becomes someone's sin. And remember, when you turn on the double lock, you are saving someone a full dinner." A student asked, "Have you ever wanted revenge?" I paused for a beat. Yes. The first 10 minutes. Then I remembered. Revenge is burning a bridge to see the fire. Repairing a bridge is passing through later. At night, I dreamed of the bridge over the Scioto River. On the bridge, the cables were like strings. I walked in the middle, listening to the sound of metal. Someone walked beside me, maybe my dad, the guy who taught me to sit and disassemble old radios for hours. He laughed. "Can you hear me? The bridge is singing." I woke up. Laura was breathing evenly. The nightlight cast a golden glow. I closed my eyes, thinking, "Yes, I can hear you." The day Meridian released its annual report, the risk and internal control section was 3.5 pages longer. Few people read it all, but I knew every word. My team and I wrote it as a commitment, as an apology to the future. Leonard texted, "Good." I replied, "We're just paying off the past." He sent a bridge emoji. I laughed. Laura brought lunch, smiling at the curious eyes of a few employees who didn't know how long I'd been married. We ate in the small conference room, watching the ripples on the screen. She said, "You still owe me a trip." Me, "Spring." She nodded. "Don't let a good deed be a reason to postpone life." I promised. Mark Reynolds called. I looked at the number on the screen for a moment and then listened. His voice was tired, no longer MBA sounding. "Ethan, Sorry." I kept quiet so he could find the words. "I thought you were old. I thought your loyalty was slowing us down. I was wrong. I was blind." I said softly, "I was wrong too. I thought whoever said optimal was a bad guy. No, the problem wasn't the words. It was the handle. He chuckled softly. And there was a clink of glasses somewhere. Thanks for not burning it, I said. I was going to burn it. Laura put it out. We laughed together. Perhaps the unsent letter, the things deep in my heart, also needed to be blown away by the wind at some point. A year after clearing the table, we had a small party for the team. I said a few words, not about the victory. I mentioned the names of those who were no longer here. The old engineers, those who left because of exhaustion, because of injustice, because the train of life changed direction. I raised my glass to them. We build security so that later, someone else won't have to choose to leave. Noah looked down at the table under the yellow light, wiping his eyes. Emma hid her smile behind a soda can. Walter cleared his throat. I concluded, if I cleared the table again, I hope to leave in a better company, one where the new person doesn't have to patch up the holes left by the old one. When everyone left, I turned off the lights. Laura waited at the door. I locked the conference room, heard the familiar click of the magnetic latch. Passing the stairs, I put my hand on the metal railing, felt a very small vibration. Not a crack. The span of the surviving building. I said, I think this bridge is fine. Laura smiled. It's okay, because someone is watching. I went back to the porch, the hot tea steaming, the dots of light outside twinkling. The phone vibrated. Mia texted, Dad, I've been asked to be a teaching assistant next term, I typed. Proud. Then I hung up, leaned back in my chair. Inside, 3 old words flowed into a warm line. Curious. Touched. Touched. Curious to see the pixel shift. Not to miss the sound of loose rivets. Touched that Laura's hand held me when I wanted to burn. That Noah chose to stay. That Leonard would read. And touched. Because in the end, what holds a bridge together isn't steel, but compassion, love, small daily sacrifices. Someone waiting for you to come home for dinner. Someone texting, don't get involved. Someone going to bed on time so you can be awake tomorrow. I wasn't a hero. I was just tightening loose screws, and put a story next to each snail so that everyone who passes by will remember. This bridge is strong because we love each other.
If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts on this story in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left.